Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tuesday's edition of Locked On Seminoles. I'm your host, Max, and right next to me, I've got Tally__Drake. Today, we are going to do power rankings. We're going to first look at the linebacking core, tell you who we think the best and who we think are the rest. Then we're going to do the same with the wide receivers. And, we may have one or two other sports things to touch on before we get out of here. Regardless, we've got a great show for y'all today. Whether you're on YouTube or the podcast, make sure that you subscribe or follow. And remember to come back Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and this week only for a very special interview with former Florida State fullback and now commentator, journalist, and great father, James Coleman. Drake, roll the video. Let's get these folks on their way to a great episode.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, folks. Again, today's episode is brought to you by Stat Hero, changing the way that you play daily fantasy. And we hope we change the way that you listen to daily podcasts here at Locked On Seminoles. 5 days a week. We know we are in the depths of the offseason, but remember, spring practice is currently going on, which means the offseason will get worse. But the night is always darkest before the dawn. Right, Driz?
You're such a nerd.
I know. But anyway, folks, we love having you here. So, dude, let's dive into some power rankings. Do you like to go? I figure we do top three. That feels good because then we can translate, if it's a position like DB, maybe we'd expand it. But let's do top five for receivers because it's like three starters. And then we'll get our two best backups is how I think that'll shake out. By the way, I don't know if we've mentioned it, but y'all have probably heard Winston Wright Jr. in a car wreck. It just sounds like everything we've read sounds like a really crappy case. A wrong place, wrong time, not driving. His car's not at fault. They got hit. He has a leg injury. It sucks, man. I feel bad for the kid. And
thankfully I saw the photos of the wreck too. Thankfully, the kid, gets better and everything else. And that's mainly his health is first and foremost in all our minds here. Yeah.
It sounds a lot like Tiger Woods' injury, right? It's like a leg injury based on probably he was in the passenger seat, but smashing into the dashboard, I'm sure it's just a bad situation. I feel for him. So I wanted to call that out because I don't know if we've sent our good thoughts to him, but hoping for a speedy recovery, and whether it's on the field or off the field, you never want to see a young man get hurt like that. So that's a huge bummer, but let's talk linebackers first. Drake, do you want to start with your third or start with your first?
I actually messed this up with Listen Up guys earlier today. So let me start with my third.
I did hear that.
Yeah, you heard that, right?
Yeah.
So
they're like, so who's your fifth? And you're like, you're already giving your fifth. You're like, well, no, I gave my number one.
Yeah, that's me just not ready for the assignment. But no, actually probably my third most important, probably the best linebacker of that core is probably Amari Gainer. Now, I mainly say that primarily because of the actual potential that's there, right? We see Amari Gainer every single offseason during tour during spring practice that the man looks and walks around like a Greek god, right? And he should every single year want to take the next step forward. He went to your alma mater high school. He is a great, he looks the part, and he was a highly touted recruit actually out of Childs. But
don't have many of those.
Not many of y'all.
Some would say only one ever.
We see towards the end of last year, he actually did start to come on a little bit. Now, whether that was the instruction of a Chris Marv, who is now gone, and now we have Randy Shannon coming in, because Randy Shannon actually was a decent linebacking coach and defensive coordinator actually at UCF. So to me, probably the third best linebacker we have is someone by the name of Amari Gainer. Amari Ferrari, if you will.
Yeah. And we're doing best, right? Not the most important thing. Because I know that, some shows do the most important. There's nothing wrong with that. To me, that's hard to quantify. I think, this is tough with linebackers because there's three ways to cut it, really, right? Are we talking best against the run, best against the pass, best overall? We're clearly talking overall, but both contribute to that overall. And that will come into play for my number one and my number two. But my number three is pretty solid, and it's Tayden Bethune. I don't know how he's going to adapt to the Power 5 level, so I can't put him higher than that in my opinion. But based on his tape from UCF, having over 100 tackles last year, playing over 500 snaps last year, I can surely say he's our third best linebacker. I genuinely believe that. Amari Gainer is my honorable mention, but he doesn't quite crack my top three. If Tatum hadn't come in, he would have, but he's definitely my number three right now. And I'm excited to see what he can do. But again, let's just say he stays exactly like he is. No step forward. Don't think that's going to happen. But I still think last year he would have been your third best linebacker on your team at least. So I'm excited that we got him in here.
See, so one that actually that's perfect because my number two actually is Tayden Bethune. That's actually a perfect little segue for that. And like if you watch his tape and you compare it to Amari Gainer's, I think he is a lot more comfortable when it comes to being in coverage in space. That's someone actually he is not like how we always say like we want you to see and react, just like be immediately like a natural instinct. He more or less has that than most linebackers that we have in this room, except for who we have as number one. So to me, like Tayden Bethune, he has that production and if you watch his tape, but you see if I know it's a group of five, me personally, I really, really don't care. It's not like a FCS level to a Power 5 level kind of jump.
That's true.
So to me, and like he played against solid teams every year, like at Cincinnati and also Mike Norvell's former Memphis. So to me, this is someone that definitely takes the next step forward. And he is the second. If it wasn't for like my guy at number one, then he probably would be the number one best linebacker we have.
So I'm probably going to take flack for this one, but when I look at their rankings and I look at my 2 through 4, it's almost like a 2A, 2B, 2C. I mean, they're very, very close. I think all three will be contributors, starting with Amari Gainer, who I expect a lot from this year. Then Tayden Bethune at my number 3. And then at my number 2, I've got DJ Lundy. And the separator there for me is that I think Amari is a better coverage guy than DJ Lundy. But you have two guys that took close to 300 snaps last year. Amari Gainer took close to 200 snaps. Amari only took 150. That's not right. I'm sorry. I was looking at his coverage snaps. You have two guys that took close to 500 snaps last year. DJ Lundy, 571, so a bit over that. Amari Gainer in the mid 400s, so a bit under that, but two big contributors. And Amari Gainer graded out much better, but the real deficiency with Lundy was that 40.1 in coverage. I look at the run defense, and somehow Amari Gainer grades like 10 points higher, but I think DJ Lundy is a better asset in the run game. I don't know how they grade that exactly, but I look at a guy who I believe is bigger, is more physical, is going to be a better guy to have in the box. On those outside runs, I think Gainer is great. I think he's a good guy coming down in the Fox. I'm not saying I put DJ Lundy above Gainer at the expense of Gainer. I just think that he is in our linebacking core a better piece because I think he's more of a true disruptor in the run game. And I think he's going to be that down 1, down 2 type guy. And again, you just got to think if that freakish size can get its stuff together, you could have something really, really special there. So I don't know. I hope it comes together, and he's my number 2 right now. Although maybe I'm being a little wishful, and you could probably flip him and Amari at 2 and 4, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Yeah, I think more to me, I think I have DJ Lundy. If I would probably have him maybe at like 5, maybe even 6. I think
Dick's at him.
No, I would have probably Brendan Gann ahead of him, and also Jadarius Green at night too, because they have that speed, which is kind of more. I forgot
about Brendan Gann.
Yeah, which is more.
I forgot, but just like I just didn't when we were doing this. I didn't really.
Because the main reason like that I think that too is because there was a former defensive backs who also still retain that speed, and we've seen Brendan Gann for run coverage. That man's fine. You tell him go one direction and to go, no one's going to beat him in that. Actually, in probably the entire college football league. JGM, I think the same kind of way with him, but with DJ Lundy, I've always said it before. I'm not going to repeat myself like at length, but make that man a fullback. I think he'd be the perfect fullback, just blocking in those big ass sets. But my number 1 power ranking, I think probably yours too, it's Kalen DeLoach. I mean,
yeah.
The kid, like that kid's awesome. The kid literally is a jack of all trades and mastered just like a few of those too as well. He is just so damn good at coverage. He's so damn good at communicating with the other linebackers what to do. Great at run fits. He never gives that. Like I gave you not flack, but I was like, okay, I understand the hard thing, but we can't have this excuse every single damn time. That's someone you see like every damn down is fighting for that ball, is fighting to make sure that they're not getting an extra inch in there to cause chaos and disruption. And Kalen DeLoach, that's just probably the best linebacker we had probably since Matthew Thomas.
Yeah, and you look at the guys who took the most snaps on the team last year, right? And you got Jarvis Brownlee. We'll see, TBD on that. Took over 800 snaps, 840, which is nuts. And then you have Jamie Robinson at 755. You got Jermaine Johnson at 736. And then you got Kalen DeLoach at 685. So he's right there, by the way. He's about 40 ahead of Keir Thomas. So you've got, he's your third, potentially your second most experienced guy on the defensive side of the ball from last year. And he's been a really solid player. I think we've talked a lot about him in pass coverage. Now, is that because he's amazing at pass coverage or because the rest of the linebacking core, a guy that I just named being one of them, was not very good at pass coverage? I don't know. To me, he's a clear number one. I've been, while you were talking, I was weighing Brendan Gant in my head. I don't know if my rankings really changed. He was really good at run defense for his safety, but it's a different thing to do it when you come down into the box and have to like I always say this about myself, right? It was one thing to be the lobbyist that had a business degree and know about business. It's another thing, like now my new job where I'm like with other people doing business. And oh gosh, now I've got to be the business person. Not like I'm not good at it, but it is it takes a bit to adjust to, being like in the position that you're actually being asked to play versus like doing a good job at those attributes while playing a different position. So yeah, I'm still putting him probably at 5 then. And then DeLoach, you got to think if he takes a step forward, you might have a really, really productive player on your hands. I will say though, because I don't want this to all just be like a Kalen DeLoach on a pedestal.
We should though. He's that awesome.
Yeah. I was trying to think of like a negative, and the only thing would be durability of like, if he played that many snaps last year, can he handle that kind of load again this yead? But that's kind of a stupid thing to knock a kid for because he did it. So
does he have to though this year? Because like we just said, like this, I think we discussed that ad nauseum. That linebacking core, we don't know if it's the most improved, but it's definitely been one of the more overhauled rooms in the class.
I've got a knock on Kalen DeLoach because we got to give something. We have to give some perspective here. The one area he'd need to improve in to play on Sunday, I'll put it that way. He only had 8 total pressures last year. So he is not an asset getting to the quarterback. Now, it could be because he was asked to go out into coverage far too often, but that is the one deficiency when I look at his snap chart from last year. And it's like, all right, dude, 685 snaps. You only got to, you only put pressure on the quarterback 8 times.
Numbers. Those are rookie numbers. You got
rookie numbers. You got to bump those numbers up, man. I mean, look, out of eight, whatever. That's.
But see, even the fact that you have to go like that,
1%.
But even though they had to go that deep into finding something, just shows like the talent level that he actually does exhibit. And like I was saying earlier, like how we bring in a Tayden Bethune, we have converted a JGM who's now like in his second year at linebacker, Brendan Gant coming down. Because even last year, you saw that he played a lot more snaps actually in that stud linebacker, that buck safety linebacker hybrid role. Like to now, hopefully he won't be asked to do literally everything while on the field and he can focus on what he needs to do. And quite frankly, that means to me that he might take a next step forward this coming season.
Yeah. And again, Brendan Gant did struggle a bit in coverage last year, much to the chagrin of all of us. And Kalen's great in coverage, but maybe he's got to get bigger. I don't know. Anyway, I like Kalen DeLoach a lot. He's my number one. You got him as your number one, and there's good reason for that. So hopefully he doesn't let us down. Folks, another thing that won't let you down is our title sponsor, Stat Hero. Stat Hero is a way to go about daily fantasy without having to play people who have algorithms and have breadths of knowledge that you just don't have the time, energy, or money to have access to. They will give you a preset lineup that you can choose to play against with your own lineup. And if you go right now to stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code lockedon, they will match your first $100 deposit with their money. So you can actually play with $200 for only $100 into the account. So go to stathero.com/lockedon, promo code lockedon, and play daily fantasy a new way. You preset lineups. That's all there is. Nobody else, no big pool of people that you have to beat. You just got to take down the guys that are lined up in front of you. stathero.com/lockedon, promo code locked on. Folks, welcome back. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. If you're not, please join the 850 strong. I genuinely appreciate every single one of you. It's crazy that a kid from Akron starts a YouTube channel. Just getting an urban Akron, but if I said Tallahassee, it wouldn't resonate the same. And, now we got 856 of y'all following on the channel. We got more of y'all on the podcast. We are growing every day, and it's freaking off season. We're talking about practice. We're just talking about practice. Okay. We haven't even started the games. Guys, the content gets way better when there's games going on. It gets better every day. It gets better every week. And then it's kind of like a parabola because the season ends again. And then, we're back to the off season, but we love y'all. Hope y'all love us. And Drizzy, let's talk about our power rankings for the wide receiver position. This is going to be an interesting one because this could go like 8 different ways. My list, I have like 6 different crossouts because it's like, am I ranking potential? Am I ranking what I've seen? Am I ranking fit for Mike Norvell's offense of current? Or am I ranking like how Mike Norvell has used similar bodies in the past. It's a tough one. So I'm interested to hear who you've got at your number 4 slot.
How about
5 slot? We said top 5.
Yeah, top 5. I was say you go first. I actually went first for the linebacking core.
Man, okay.
And I want to put you in the spot too.
I know. I have 2 lists next to each other that I'm looking at. Should just share my spreadsheet, but that might just. Oh, you know, I'm just gonna throw it out. So my number 5 wide receiver. I'm calling him a wide receiver. 100% calling him a wide receiver. I am gonna put my faith in the speedster Corey Wren. Now I know people have said he's getting some burn at running back this practice season, but I don't think he's going to be a running back. I think this is his year where he can be. I think Ja'Kai Douglas takes a step forward. Talk about him later. I think I know it's out of left field, but I think Wren, pure skill wise, could be your 5th best receiver on this team. That speed hasn't gone anywhere, and I'm hoping he studied the playbook because, gosh, that speed is something that I want to see. So I've got Corey Wren rounding out my top 5 at number 5. And here's who my honorable mention is Deuce Spann, because the number 5, let me put it this way. Number 5 for me was going to be a potential slot no matter what. It was going to be a rank based on what I think they could do. And I went to Wren just because he's been here longer and he's been an athlete for longer. And Spann is only on his 2nd year converted from wide receiver, but he has freaky potential too that we've seen flashes of at Illinois. So
interesting. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that comment at that. But to me, number 5 probably would be Johnny Wilson, probably from Arizona State, the transfer from there.
You have him all the way down number 5?
I only have him at number 5, mainly because I think that he most likely will have seen a lot more tight end snaps. From what we've been hearing, I know it's only practice. And me personally, when you see practice updates and you're not performing that well, I take the AI approach. Like, it's just practice. But I wouldn't be surprised if he takes some more tight end snaps from a Cam McDonald because he hasn't been performing that well actually in the spring. And with Johnny Wilson, he has that blend of speed, that blend of size, and also that blend of, like that large and long catch radius. The only reason why I don't have him higher is because his lack of production at Arizona State. Now I understand they had Jayden Daniels as quarterback, but 2 years ago, Jayden Daniels was probably one of the best freshmen in the country. So to me, if we need to see sort of this offense take the next step when it comes to passing, he needs to be part of it. But I think at number 5 is the perfect spot for him.
So at Calabasas High School, they had him listed at 225. At Arizona State, he was listed at 225. Now he's listed at 235. So maybe he's put on 10 pounds. That's great. But I still think he's too lean for that tight end spot. I know that you and other credible folks do like, him maybe moving over. But I think that if he's going to move over, if anyone's going to move over, it's going to be my number 4, and that's Josh Burrell. I think that Burrell, frame-wise, makes more sense for what this offense. And like I said, you can look at what have Mike Norvell offense has done before and what does this Mike Norvell offense do? And I'm looking at what has this Mike Norvell offense done. And I think the way they ask tight ends to play in this, you look at how much run blocking Cam McDonald's asked to do on top of pass catching, how much screen work the tight ends get on here, right? They like to put them in that squat back spot or in that weird triangular diamond thing and throw to the tight end on a screen that way. I think one of Cam's touchdowns came that way. And I think he also lead blocked for someone else's touchdown that way. Point being, Burrell fits into that a lot more for me. He is 6'2", 204. What do they have him listed at for the spring?
224.
224, right? So you think about like 235 on 6'7", and this is just a Max Moody thing, guys. But my rule of thumb was always that proportions for guys, it's always about 10 pounds per inch is proportional. Came to that just through I don't know, my own system of kind of looking at it. But the way I think about that is like if he was 6'7", he'd probably be about 270, right? Because you just look at how thick and bulky he is at 6'2", because 235 at 6'7" is very, very lean. Like that's not a big 6'7" guy. You look at the videos and he's not James Blackman skinny, but my man is not tight end filled out. However, I think he's got freaky potential. So I think Burrell is your most likely tight end. And I think he's my number 4 receiver. I only have him back at number 4 because number 5 is my potential spot. Every spot ahead of that, I got to go off what I've seen them do on the field. And because of his injury, we don't 100% know what he's going to come back to on the field, but we do know he's big, he's strong. And in this offense where receivers are asked to both block and catch and do a lot in the screen game, I think Burrell can be a really, really solid piece.
Yeah, Burrell's like my honorable mention. It's mainly because of that leg injury. I mean, a lot of people have the tight end thing. I just think he has a little more value maybe in that slot role, but that's neither here nor there. And I think number 4 for me, I think it's Mycah Pittman. And I put him there primarily because I don't think he's going to be asked to be the number one guy on this offense, nor I don't think he should be. I just think that he definitely will bring a nice wrinkle to that. He'll basically be an extra guy to spell, like maybe a Keyshawn Helton, who actually I have higher on this list. And also maybe with the Winston Wright injury, we don't know when he will be back. So I think Mycah Pittman actually fits in right here very well. And also to me, this is a little bit cheating. I do give his special teams role is definitely a factor in this overall because I don't
think that's cheating. I think if I'm allowed to talk about run blocking, like we're talking about contributions to the team and, among the wide receiving core, I think that's totally acceptable.
Yeah, and we've seen in special teams like last year, that cost us some games. And I'm looking right at the Ontario Wilson,
legitimately
muff punt at the University of Florida game. And Mycah Pittman has a highlight reel of returns. So Mycah Pittman, give me him a number 4.
So that's the thing is I don't think he's going to be any better than anyone we have on the roster at running when he has the ball in his hands. But there is a science or an art, not a science, to fielding punts. Like you just have to have that sense of like, where am I on the field? Like you have to be able to do that mental math of if I catch the ball here, where does that put my team on the field? Based on what I know, just quick math. If that ball hits the ground, how much further back are they going to go? And you look at Miami, dude. I love that we won that game. Miami fans, if you stuck around for 3 more episodes, happy to have you back. But like letting that punt go before that final drive, if that ball stops at the 2-yard line, we don't win that football game. Like a guy like Mycah Pittman probably has the wherewithal to know where he is on the field, know that balls don't typically bounce 18 yards and he catches at the 18 and you're guaranteed to be there.
And you also have to be comfortable with knowing that there's maybe 3 to 4 people running directly at you at full speed when you can't look at them, which is honestly the most horrifying thing you can think of.
That's that's true. I've never actually put it in those terms. But I want to give my number 3. But before I do, folks, I want to make sure that I tell you about our friends over at Bet Online. The NCAA tournament is going, it's rocking, it's rolling, and you need to be able to put action on these games. And the best place to do it is at Bet Online. If you go to betonline.net, they've got a lot of info for you. They've got stats, they've got articles, podcasts, all those things to give you all the info you need. But first, you got to make an account. So go to Bet Online, make an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON when you do, and you will get a welcome bonus of up to $150 with a 50% match on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. So Drake, this is like just such a tough list because I had so much trouble with this top 3, and that's why we went to top 5. And I think for me, my number 3 is going to be Johnny Wilson, because I think that what we've been missing is a tough, physical guy that can go up and get the ball on the outside, not just because he can do it, but to open things up for maybe it is Burrell in the slot. Maybe it's Mycah Pittman. Maybe it's Keyshawn Helton or Ontario Wilson in there. We need someone that can be a vertical threat to the ball. Now I'm a little worried because what I've seen in practice, you see a lot of Ontario Wilson down the field still. And I don't need him to ever be like 10 yards from the line of scrimmage again, 12 at the most. Like we need a guy on the outside. So maybe Wilson isn't ready for that role, but the videos I've seen, he looks like he's ready. And again, he's 6'7", has a big vertical catch radius. And I'm very excited about that. So I've got him at my number 3 slot.
This is going to make a lot of people angry. I have Keyshawn Helton number 3. And I've been kind of beating the drum of this kid probably since he got here. He's a very under-recruited kid. He's like basically a story that you root for. He tore his knee 2 seasons ago. And then last year, you kind of saw towards the end of the year that at the beginning, you can honestly, point to the one play against Jacksonville State, which is definitely where we probably lost that game. However, towards the end of the year, you saw him be the reliable like safety blanket for short little yard outs, something that's more like his capability. And I think he'll be better in this offense because now he's not your wide receiver 1. To me, that kid is the perfect option at number 3, maybe even number 4 if you do jumbo bigger sets, right? So to me, like Keyshawn Helton is probably the most dependable when it comes to his hands when his confidence actually is back. He actually understands his routes, and the kid also works his ass off. So to me, number 3 is Keyshawn Helton.
Yeah, so I'm going to somehow end up leaving Ja'Kai Douglas out of my top 5. I've reconfigured this like 9 times, and he should be like my number 3 or my number 2 even. But he's kind of a potential guy because, again, we just haven't seen him be able to be a consistent receiver out there on the field, whether that's his fault or someone else's. There's room for speculation, but I gave Corey Wren that number 5 slot because that was my potential slot. And I wanted to kind of just make a splash and have some conversation. So I threw Wren out there. So that's just my way of working in that Ja'Kai Douglas should be on this list. And he's probably like the biggest snub of all the power rankings we're going to do.
He's
but my
a
number
for everything, man. I feel like the kid's good too.
I know it, but it wouldn't be like, you wouldn't be Ja'Kai Douglas if I didn't snub, if you didn't get snubbed in some random, FSU podcasts, power rankings. Sorry, bud. But I am excited for what he's going to do this year. But my number 2 is going to be Malik Mclean. I mean, the talent's there. He was asked to do too much as a true freshman, in my opinion. The fact that that's who we were going to in fade situations on 4th down in the Jacksonville State game, which was the second game of the season, right after we'd asked him to do it against Notre Dame, is like, it wasn't 4th down against Notre Dame, but still, that's a lot for a freshman. And he handled the moment pretty well. He wasn't successful in every scenario. I think we looked at what he got caught like 58%, 60% of his targets, which is not great. But again, for a true 18-year-old freshman, 19 years old, I think he played really well. And if he takes a step forward, I think he could push for your number 1 slot. But to me, Malik Mclean is your number 2, second best, not your number 2 like your Z, but just your second best wide receiver in Max Moody's power rankings this year.
So these two are really hard for me, primarily because we don't know what the status of Winston Wright Jr. actually is going to be probably when the season kicks off. So I'm actually
going to assume he's not playing.
Yeah, I'm actually
for these purposes, like as we sit here now for rankings, I hope he plays, but let's just.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, my number 2 actually is Ontario Wilson. And that's someone that definitely, because the talent you see on, like, look at the UNC game, his entire highlight reel, because I think he was the most targeted and the most catches of that game, right? So to me, like, the potential actually is supremely there. But he's another one that probably should be your second option at wide receiver. And I think the additions of a Mycah Pittman, a Johnny Wilson, a Winston Ryder, and the random, one player or 2 plays a game of Deuce Spann in there as well, it's going to open up for him a lot more. And this is someone that I know that he's been much maligned since he's been here, as we've been maligned the wide receiver room for a majority of the past 3 years. I sincerely think that he's a lot of untapped potential, whether that's scheme-wise, whether that's him being able to run out, whether that's, a fault of his position coach. To me, he is number 2 on the list.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love when we disagree to a degree. But I don't know. I'm with you on his potential skill. Where you kind of lose me is his versatility. I don't think he's that versatile. I think he's kind of like a Nooney Murray. I mean, he's just like, he's a good wide receiver, but I just don't know that he's got a diverse skill set other than being pretty quick, having pretty solid hands, but you really don't want him on the outside. Every now and then he'll get behind coverage, but he's an over the middle kind of guy. He's the occasional, post corner guy. And yeah, he's open for a touchdown, but I think he's kind of a one-dimensional middle of the field, short yardage guy. And that's fine. You need one of those. But my number 1 is someone who I think is that guy, but is also better at it. And that's Keyshawn Helton, who you had at your number 3. This was one where I really, for number 1, right? We have a position group where I think we have like 14 scholarship athletes, and we're trying to rate the top 5. So if someone's left out, please tell us in the comments. And I probably agree with you. I talked about Ja'Kai Douglas, right? I talked about Mycah Pittman. I talked about several of these guys who, I think that you have a lot of athletic potential in Kentron Portier. But for number 1, I had to say, who has proven it the most on the field in garnet and gold in a Mike Norvell offense? And to me, that's Keyshawn Helton, right? If I'm doing those criteria, no one else in that room has done more on the field in this uniform for this head coach than Keyshawn Helton. And I'm with you 100%. I'm putting him at my number 1 receiver in rankings, but not position. I think the fact that he can be a number 2 or even a Z receiver this year is freaking awesome. Like, I cannot wait to see Keyshawn never having to go beyond 10 yards, catching those digs, and maybe every now and then turning a slant into a 50-yard gain. That's where he belongs. That's what he's good at. And I'm very excited that he gets to play that role this year.
So as I said before, prior to the injury, I probably would have had Winston Wright Jr. number 1 because he's actually proven to be a great damn good wide receiver.
The same criteria there, right? Like he what 800, 700 yards last year. I mean, he had like, dude, he's done it on the field.
He's also amazing at kick returning too. So like that's another thing too that you can add to that. But since I left him off that perimeter for injury concerns, my number 1 is actually your number 2, Malik Mclean. And I know that you discussed it, a little bit, so I'll kind of keep it a little more shorter. He had a really damn good freshman year when at a position where when you're a freshman, he was asked to do so much. And honestly, stuff that he probably shouldn't be asked to do. and he still actually had a 60% completion percentage. He still went up and got the ball. I mean, that fade route that we saw against Jacksonville State, we didn't like. Why are you doing that?
That was a stupid call. Why are you throwing the ball on 4th down against Jacksonville State? Like, if you're going to go for it, just hand the ball to Jajon Corbin.
Exactly. So, but you see, like, towards the end of the year, that he actually got a lot more comfortable, and he actually was starting to, like, acclimate that very well. So, to me, because I think Malik Mclean has the potential ability to be a day 1 draft pick. I think he has the frame. I think he has the style. I think he has the speed, and that all those things are things you really can't teach. So, to me, Malik Mclean is your obvious wide receiver 1. And if he's not healthy, maybe wide receiver 2. So, to me, it's kind of easier. It's a slam dunk pick for Malik Mclean for me.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, man. It's like everyone hated hearing this as a kid because everyone wanted to be Rudy. Like, I get it. I'm 6'1", 190, probably 205 at my best. Like, I'm not the fastest guy. I know we all wanted to believe we were special, but you can't coach 6'4", 201 pounds and fast. You just, that you're right. You can't coach it. And when you hit on being asked to do a lot, folks, think back to when you were 18 and think about how much you developed just as a human from 18 to 22. Like, men, it's biology. We mature later, right? From 18 to 22, you're at your peak of testosterone. Like, you are going to put on size. You're going to get faster. You're going to get stronger. And he was being asked to block down on grown men a lot of times. I guess it's unfair to assume they were all not also freshmen, but the point is running in there at 18 with 18-year-old high school strength and being told, hey, we're going to need you to run block. What is this? 185 times. And he comes out of that with a grade of 62.7 with a 76 against North Carolina, a 79.6, by the way, in run blocking on 18 run blocking snaps against Notre Dame in his first game ever as a freshman. That's pretty solid, So you also see that physicality and you see that toughness. And it's like, no freshman should have to do that. A freshman wide receiver should not have to run block 185 times, and he still did it. And then he also had a pretty solid performance at receiver where he could take a big step forward. So I like him as your number 1. I'm still sticking with Keyshawn because I think he's the more proven commodity. But regardless, folks, let us know what you think about the wide receiver core and the linebacking unit this year. And we'd love to respond to it in our next Mailbag Monday. Also, like I said, make sure y'all stop by this weekend. We're dropping a sit down with James Coleman, folks. We talked for a very long time. So I'm excited for y'all to see that. I'm more excited to see y'all each and every day. Quick programming note. Y'all will see me tomorrow, but you won't see me the rest of the week until the interview on Saturday or Sunday. But you are in very capable hands of Tally__Drake and Mr. David Weiss Esquire. I'm Max, and this has been Locked On Seminoles. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
I have an Esquire too, folks. I paid $240 grand for that.